Mike, check. Justin Hunt. It's all happening. Thanking everybody rocking with the channel. Thanking everybody subscribe through the channel who shared a video, shared a link. It's priceless. Big thank you to everyone who's donated. If you'd like to donate, you can hit the Cash App that's right up there, or you can hit the link in the description. And big thank you to all my newest members. Nardo, Trey P, OK Station, Michael Barnes, Andy. Big shout out to Andy. Andy be everywhere, commenting on everything and be dropping real insight. Big shout out to you, Andy. Saturn, Shez No Lady, LT Scooby-Doo. I love it. 9-second applause. Thank you. News is out. UMG filed a motion to dismiss the defamation case in New York. Now, I read through it earlier. We're going to read through it. It's not crazy long, but there's some things that stand out to me here, so let's take a look at it. All right, so here it is. Now, first thing that stands out, I really love the pettiness of this intro. This intro was beautifully petty. All right, so they quote a line from Drake's Successful. Right, now this is one of his first hits. It was on So Far Gone, if I'm not mistaken. And this is one of the first Drake songs that I really liked. I really liked it because there were his approach to things was a little bit left of center to where hip hop was at that point in time. But he said some controversial things even there that now in retrospect, if he had stuck to it, everything would be all right. This first line says, "Yeah, I want it all. That's what I strive for it. Diss me, you'll never hear a reply for it." 1 second applause. I mean, he had the whole tools. He had the whole tools in the beginning. Now, that line had came from a lot of Canadian beef that Drake was in before he broke big in America and internationally. But that's the first line they put in this motion to dismiss. And 1 second applause again. The one time I interviewed Drake was at Southpaw in Brooklyn, legendary club at that point in time. It's closed now. I think it's a daycare center in Park Slope, Brooklyn. And it was at, who was performing? Zoe Kravitz was performing with her band. And so Drake was there checking out Zoe Kravitz. And Lenny Kravitz was there too. And this is when I was running through New York and running around the independent scene heavy. And I had a great relationship with Southpaw. Big shout out to Southpaw. 1 second applause. Big shout out to Jossie and everybody. Jossie called me up and was like, "Drake's here, you got to come through." And so I got him on some guerrilla journalism. And I asked him 3 questions, right? And one of them was this. Because I was like, what are we doing in hip hop? You're saying, diss me, you'll never hear a reply for it. Maybe Drake should have stuck to that. And maybe, J. Cole's inspired by that too. Maybe J. Cole is at the diss me, you'll never hear a reply for it stage of his career. You never know. But this is the beginning of the filing. I love this already. All right, let's get into it. Plaintiff, one of the most successful recording artists of all time, lost a rap battle that he provoked and in which he willingly participated. Instead of accepting the loss like the unbothered rap artist he often claims to be, he has sued his own record label in a misguided attempt to salve his wounds. Plaintiff's complaint is utterly without merit and should be dismissed with prejudice. That means they can't bring it back up. I loved how they use unbothered. Unbothered. I mean, Lil Yachty did an interview over the summer where he said that Drake was really unbothered. Was it Lil Yachty? I think it was Lil Yachty. I know he had a press release that went out and said that Drake was unbothered by all these things. Well, last week he said he was uneasy, right? And that's something I pointed out in the story I did on Drake saying something of substance, I guess, on his Instagram account, where he described this next phase is going to be uneasy. And in that video, I said, looks like there's something to look out for here. Because recently, when Drake has been really cryptic in his posts, for example, the Game 2 post last summer, well, Game 2 was the defamation case. The Fighting Irish Freestyle, well, right after that, we get the actual defamation lawsuit. Last week, he said this next phase, may be uneasy. And here we are, top of this week, and we're getting UMG's motion to dismiss. So, like the unbothered rap artist he often claims to be. 1 second applause. Introduction. In the spring of 2024, 2 of the most popular recording artists in the world, Kendrick Lamar, Aubrey Drake Graham, Drake or Plaintiff, engaged in a high-profile rap battle. Over the course of approximately 2 months, they exchanged increasingly vitriolic and incendiary diss tracks, sometimes responding within hours of each other. Man, that was a great week. That was a really great week. 1 second applause to that week. Drake encouraged the feud. Drake encouraged the feud. For example, when he felt Lamar was taking too long to respond, Drake released a second recording in which he goaded Lamar to continue the public rap battle. Lamar did just that, and collectively, Drake and Lamar released a total of 9 tracks taking aim at each other. Multiple commentators declared Lamar to be the winner of the battle. I was one of them. Maybe I'm in here too. I'm a multiple commentator. Hey, 1 second applause. Not Like Us, the penultimate track in the feud, is the subject of the complaint. The recording and music video were released by Lamar through defendant UMG on May 4th, 2024. Not Like Us was a massive commercial and artistic success. The record was the best-selling rap recording of 2024 and won the Grammy Award for Record of the Year, and the accompanying music video won the Grammy Award for Best Music Video. The Not Like Us song won the Grammy Award for Song of the Year and has become a ubiquitous cultural phenomenon, amongst other things. Lamar performed the song at the 2025 Super Bowl halftime show to a record audience, and Saturday Night Live parodied it in its recent 50th anniversary special. Could have just left this alone last year. Look, the first quarter is almost done of 2025. 2025. If I was Drake, I'd want to leave all this in 2025. But now we've got legal documents that open with what can't be a happy reminder. Just can't be. Saturday Night Live, the Super Bowl, the Oscars. It is a cultural phenomenon. 1 second applause. Not Like Us, like all of the recordings in the feud between Drake and Lamar, and like the many notorious diss tracks throughout rap's history, consists of a series of hyperbolic insults. Drake has been pleased to use UMG's platform to promote tracks leveling similarly incendiary attacks at Lamar, including, most significantly, that Lamar engaged in domestic abuse and that one of Lamar's business partners and managers is the true father of Lamar's son. That's Dave Freak. But now, after losing the rap battle, Drake claims that Not Like Us is defamatory. It is not. While the complaint focuses almost entirely on Not Like Us, it disregards the other Drake and Lamar diss tracks that surrounded Not Like Us, as well as the conventions of the diss track genre, and thus critically ignores the context of the dispute. Assessed in context, as it must be, Not Like Us clearly conveys non-actionable opinion and rhetorical hyperbole. Keep note of that phrasing. Right. I mean, that comes up a lot in this filing. And I think it's at the core of what they're arguing here as they ask the court to dismiss. Non-actionable opinion and rhetorical hyperbole. Diss tracks are a popular and celebrated art form centered around outrageous insults, and they would be severely chilled if Drake's suit were permitted to proceed. I mean, that's something we've been arguing here quite a bit. I think a lot of people have been talking about it. One of the things that really is distasteful about this filing, this lawsuit that Drake's leveling, is like he's willing to take down the entire diss track genre under the faux guise of helping other artists and attacking a predatory music industry, when really it's just a self-serving attempt to, in my opinion, negotiate a better position to get out of his deal, go independent. So he's willing to potentially chill diss tracks completely in the name of doing it for the people. I mean, this is like, we're seeing this with like, you know, the current Trump administration. They're looking for waste, fraud, and abuse, so they're cutting everybody's Medicaid. Cutting everybody's programs and calling them waste, fraud, and abuse. We're getting rid of U.S. aid, which helps U.S. farmers, because we're looking for waste, fraud, and abuse. No, this is self-serving. It's a banner thing. It's like the war on terrorism. You know what I mean? Like, you call anything a terrorist, the war goes on forever. It's like the war on drugs. All right, here's Drake. I'm going at UMG to help artists. But no, you lost a rap battle and you want to get out of your deal with a better position. So you're going to say that you're doing it for the people. And at the risk, bare minimum, chill the entire diss track genre.
I'm going
to... Shout out to Jason Martin. Drake also alleges that Not Like Us constitutes second-degree harassment, but sues under a criminal statute that does not prescribe speech and has no private right of action. Finally, Drake claims that UMG's promotion of Not Like Us violates New York General Business Law Section 349. but fails to allege any of the elements of that claim. So this filing, this motion to dismiss is going to go through those step by step, and they're going to make their argument as to why all of the allegations that Drake is leveling in his defamation suit don't actually meet New York general business law, etc. Right? So we're going to get to the details of that. Notably, less than 3 years ago, Drake himself signed a petition criticizing the trend of prosecutors using artists' creative expression against them by treating rap lyrics as literal fact. See UMG's request for judicial notice, RJN. That'll come up a lot too. As Drake recognized, when it comes to rap, the final work is a product of the artist's vision and imagination. Drake was right then and is wrong now. The complaint's unjustified claims against UMG are no more than Drake's attempt to save face for his unsuccessful rap battle with Lamar. The court should grant UMG's motion and dismiss the complaint with prejudice. Right. So that's really what their argument is. Now, here's where the details come in. There's a lot of details in here I thought were really interesting, especially some of the other cases that they reference. UMG represents more than 220 artists and brands worldwide and holds a catalog of more than 3.2 million recordings. UMG represents artists through inter alia, recording, distribution, publishing, and third-party licensing agreements, and helps maximize their commercial success through its world-class marketing, proprietary data analytics, and global distribution network. Drake is an internationally known rap artist. Drake signed with UMG through UMG's Republic division in 2009 and extended his contract in 2022. Drake's partnership with UMG has been hugely successful. He is one of the best-selling music artists of all time, with over 170 million albums sold and a series of awards and accolades, including Billboard's Artist of the Decade in 2021. UMG also represents Lamar through UMG's Interscope division. Lamar is a highly successful rap artist in his own right. Well, that's an understatement. But, Lamar's not the one being sued. UMG is. But, yeah, that's funny. B, Drake and Lamar engaged in a vitriolic rap feud. Man, we're suing over a rap battle. There is a lawsuit. It still trips me out. Like, look at that sentence. Drake and Lamar engaged in a vitriolic rap feud. This is in a motion to dismiss a defamation case. It's crazy. I'm sorry. Not like us, the recording at the center of this action was released as part of a rap beef between Drake and Lamar. The artist feud reportedly traces its origins back to more than a decade, but broke into the public domain in early 2024, when Drake and Lamar began trading diss tracks, sometimes within the same hour. Drake and Lamar's feud was not unique in the world of rap. Rap feuds where artists trade diss tracks insulting each other have existed pretty much since the beginning of rap in the 1970s. A number of storied feuds have occurred throughout rap history, including the Roxanne Wars involving Roxanne Shante and the rap group UTFO, the real Roxanne, as well as feuds between Nas and Jay-Z, Lil' Kim and Foxy Brown, and Megan Thee Stallion and Nicki Minaj. Shout out to you, Andy. 1 second applause. They are literally breaking down rap hip-hop history. I know they're doing it for the judge. But since they're talking about Drake suing for defamation over a rap battle, it just looks crazy. Footnote, as described in the Pop Culture Happy Hour podcast transcript cited by Drake, rap feuding is the art of blood-sporting music, a speculative exercise that highly sensationalizes long-standing rumors. Drake is a prolific rap feud combatant. This is crazy. Having traded diss tracks with a number of artists, including Pusha T and Meek Mill, back-to-back lyrics, Drake diss track and Meek Mill feud, and RJN example C, W Freestyle lyrics, Drake diss track and Pusha T feud. The public feud between Drake and Lamar traces back to the October 2023 recording First Person Shooter by Drake and J. Cole, in which J. Cole rapped that he, Drake, and Lamar were the big three, i.e. the top 3 rappers in the industry. See example T, example D. First Person Shooter lyrics. In response, Lamar appeared on the March 2024 track Like That with artists Future and Metro Boomin, in which he rejected the notion that Drake and J. Cole were his equals, rapping, "Mother effed up big 3, it's just big me. Boom! I'm really like that. Your best work is a light pack. Yo, Prince outlived Mike J. Boom!" 1 second of applause. Drake responded in April 2024 with the track Push Ups, distributed by UMG. The recording takes aim at Lamar insulting inter alia his height. How the F you big stepping with a size 7 men's on? That's a funny line. That's still a funny line. And Pip Squeak pipe down. You ain't no big 3. SZA got your wipe down. And his career. Your first number 1, I had to put it in your hand. Your last one brick, you really not on shit. And I'm at the top of the mountain just to have this talk with your ass. I had to hike down. Wow. Those lines did not age well. Except for the funny one. You big stepping with the size 7 men's on. That's still funny to me. He also encouraged the feud, stating, and that effing song y'all got did not start the beef with us. This ish been brewing in a pot, now I'm heating up. Then, seemingly impatient with the time it was taking Lamar to respond, Drake released Tailor-Made Freestyle on Instagram. Example G, tailor-made freestyle lyrics. The recording uses artificial intelligence to make it sound as if the voices of deceased rap icon Tupac Shakur and rapper Snoop Dogg are rapping Drake's lyrics. In their voices, Drake taunts Lamar for his delay. Most notably, for present purposes, Drake urges Lamar in the voice of Tupac to talk about Drake like a young girl's on Lamar's next track. Now, that's my favorite track that Drake put out during this battle. I have a whole video about it. I'll put a link in the description. It's called What I Love About Tailor-Made Freestyle. But now, again, as the internet has been talking about forever. The internet's been talking about this forever. Commentators, we've been talking about it. The culture's been talking about it. Drake on that song tells Kendrick to do what Kendrick did. That's what he does on the song. And they included those lyrics here in this filing. Kendrick will need ya, West Coast savior, and grant me your name and some hip hop history. If you deal with this viciously, you seem a little nervous about all the publicity. F this Canadian light-skinned dot. We need a no-debated West Coast victory, man. Call him a bitch for me. Talk about him like a young girl's. That's a gift for me. Heard it on the Budden podcast. Has got to be true. Wow. I mean, a note on that Canadian line. There's been a lot of Canadians talking about how they feel like all of Canada was dissed because Kendrick mentions Canadian on Euphoria. Well, that is a rebuttal. That is a rebuttal. Drake brings up Canadian first on Tailor-Made Freestyle. F this Canadian light-skinned dot. So yeah, you get over there to Euphoria, and now it's like, I'd rather do that than let a Canadian nigga make Pac turn in his grave. This is where that comes from. That is a rebuttal. Anyone making arguments as if not like us or this track othered Canada is having selective arguments to fit their narrative. Drake brought Canadian in. It's a rebuttal. 1 second applause. Because that rebuttal got a lot of Canadian commentators looking crazy out here. In the voice of Snoop Dogg, Drake then calls on Lamar to release a new diss track. But still, you got to show this effing Al who's boss out west. Now it's time to really make a power move. Because right now it's looking like you're writing out the game plan on how to lose. How to bark up the wrong tree and then get your head popped in a crowded room. World is watching this chess game, but are you out of moves? And his own voice, Drake raps, since like that, your tone changed a little. You're not as enthused. How are you not in the booth? I feel like you kind of removed. You trying to let this ish die down? Nah, not this time. You following through. I guess you need another week to figure out how to improve. What the F is taking so long? We waiting on you. Aged terribly. 1 second applause. That's still my favorite song that Drake put out in this battle. Lamar responded with 2 tracks, Euphoria, followed by 616 in LA, classic and a classic. See example H, Euphoria lyric. See example H and example I. Lamar raps of Drake and Euphoria. The famous actor we once knew was looking paranoid and now spiraling. And a pathetic master manipulator. I can smell the tails on you now. You're not a rap artist, you're a scam artist with the hopes of being accepted. He criticizes Drake's music. I make music that electrify him. You make music that pacify him. That's interesting they put that part in there. That's really interesting that they quote that line. Because that is a piece of foreshadowing right there. Attacks his use of Tupac's voice in Tailor-Made Freestyle. I'm ready to double the wage. I'd rather do that than let a Canadian make Pac turn in his grave. Right, exactly. That was a rebuttal. Attacks his parenting. I got a son to raise, but I can see you don't know nothing about that. and insults his character and racial identity. All right, here's the footnote. Drake uses the brand name OVO for various commercial endeavors, including his record label OVO Sound and clothing brand OVO. OVO uses an owl as the brand image. I hate the way that you walk, the way that you talk. I hate the way that you dress. I hate the way that you sneak this. If I catch flight, it's going to be direct. How many more fairy tales about your life till we had enough? How many more black features till you finally feel that you're black enough? Man, that went so crazy in the Pop Out. That's at the Pop Out show. That's nuts. 1 second, pause. Lamar's insults continue in 616 in LA, where he raps that members of Drake's OVO team are disloyal. Have you ever thought that OVO is working for me? Fake bully. I hate bullies. You must be a terrible person. Everyone inside your team is whispering that you deserve it. Drake responded approximately 14 hours later on the evening of May 3rd with the track Family Matters, distributed by UMG. Example J. The track is a scathing attack on Lamar, laden with hyperbolic slurs. They call him hyperbole. Drake attacks, among other things, Lamar's authenticity. You just acting like an activist is make-believe. Mocks his height. He always said I overlooked him. He always said I overlooked him. I was staring straight. These bars go over Kenny head no matter what I say. States that Lamar cheats on his fiance. Why did you move to New York? Is it because you live in that bachelor life? Proposed in 2015, but don't want to make her your actual wife? I'm guessing this wedding ain't happening, right? Because we know the girls that you actually like. Your darkest secrets are coming to light. And asserts that one of Lamar's children was fathered by one of his business partners and managers, Dave Free. Your baby mama captions always screaming, save me. You did her dirty all your life. You try to make peace. I heard one of them little kids might be Dave Free. Don't make it Dave Freeze. Because if your GM is your BM secret BD, then this is all making plenty effing sense to me. Man. So what they're doing is, again, there's some people who call this crowdsourced the motion to dismiss, because these arguments have been out for a long time. Right. I mean, this has been the conversation as this debate has carried on now for nearly a year. But I do find them actually relevant to this court case because, again, we covered Drake's initial defamation lawsuit filing. Here, we went through basically the whole document, or at least all the relevant parts. And that filing, that lawsuit, the defamation lawsuit as written, did everything it could to separate Not Like Us from this battle. And this document, this motion to dismiss, is in rebuttal to that. They're like, no. You can't look at Not Like Us in a vacuum. You have to look at it in context. And then they provide the legal justifications to support this approach later in the document. We'll get to it. But that's why they're lining all this stuff out like this. Drake also raps that Lamar physically abuses his fiance, stating, when you put your hands on your girl, is it self-defense because she's bigger than you? And they hired a crisis management team to clean up the fact that you beat on your queen. The recording also makes various other allusions to violence, including gun violence. Drake opens that he has emptied the clip over friendlier jabs, asks which one of my so-called hitters need a shell from the clip. And Rex, come get this ass whooping. I'm handing him out. The track closes with Drake stating, you're dead. You're dead. You're dead. There's nowhere to hide. There's nowhere to hide. Multiple gunshots also sound at various points in the recording. Lamar responded with two more back-to-back tracks, Meet the Grams, followed by Not Like Us. And Meet the Grams, released approximately 30 minutes after Family Matters, Lamar directs his insults to various members of Drake's immediate family and to Drake himself. I mean, that still is one of the parts that hip-hop will never get over. 30 minutes after Family Matters drops, we get Meet the Grams. And both of those are after 616 in LA when he's saying, have you ever thought that OVO was working for me? So he actually executed on his assertion or illusion at that point in time that there was moles in OVO and executed it to perfection by dropping Meet the Grams 30 minutes after. That's 1 second applause. That's still incredible. Not Like Us was released on May 4th, like the diss tracks before it. Not Like Us consists of hyperbolic insults. See example A. Lamar calls Drake names. Why you trolling like a bitch? Ain't you tired? And it was God's plan to show y'all the liar. Mocks Drake's OVO brand and image. What OVO for? The other vaginal option? Pussy. The way Storm's face looked at that part of the video was crazy. And what is the owl? Bird niggas and bird bitches. Makes hyperbolic threats of violence. You think the Bay gonna let you disrespect Pac? I think that Oakland show gonna be your last stop. I mean, that part right there too. In Drake's defamation filing, took that entirely out of context because they think that in that filing, they say that Kendrick Lamar is from Oakland. From Oakland. They reference this part as a threat of violence and they say Lamar is threatening that Drake will be assaulted in Oakland, where Lamar is from. I mean, that filing had so many egregious errors in it. You know, that filing said Not Like Us was anti-Semitic.
Tomato.
Back to the filing. Attacks Drake's personal relationships, including alleging that Drake had relations with rapper Lil Wayne's girlfriend. After Wayne girl while he was in jail, that's conniving. And calls him an effing colonizer, inferring Drake exploits other artists for fame and financial benefit. Yeah, well, that looks kind of accurate to me. Taking up Drake's invitation in tailor-made freestyle to talk about Drake liking young girls, Lamar also makes various statements at issue in the complaint, including, "Say Drake, I hear you like him young. You better not ever go to cell block 1. To any B that talk to him and they in love, just make sure you hide your little sister from him. And why you trolling like a B? Ain't you tired? Trying to strike a chord and it's probably A minor." That's another great rebuttal right there, because that rebuttal's the day free. He also raps, "And Baca got a weird case. Why is he around? Certified lover boys, certified pedophiles," plural. And states, "And your homeboy needs subpoena, that predator moving flocks. That name got to be registered and placed on neighborhood watch." Drake responded the following day with the Heart Part 6, see example L. There, Drake doubles down on his statement that one of Lamar's children was fathered by Mr. Free. Double down. Double down. And why isn't Whitney denying all the accusations? Why is she following Dave Free and not Mr. Morale? Dave leaving heart emojis underneath pics of a child. And like, if Dave really effed your girl and got her pregnant, talk about breeding resentment. And reiterates his claim of domestic abuse. "I don't want to fight with a woman beater. It feeds your nature." Drake states that he expected the alleged defamatory statements in Not Like Us. "This Epstein angle was the ish I expected. TikTok videos you collected and dissected." And denies them. "Only effing with Whitney's, not Millie Bobby Brown's. I never looked twice at no teenager." The track also contains further references to violence, including "I'll slit your throat with the razor." And "yeah, bullets that I'm stuffing in each chamber, your ass in extreme danger." Extreme danger. He doubled down. He doubles down in that song, which is crazy. It's crazy to look at that. I mean, even looking at these lyrics now, I'm reminded of Professor Sky's breakdown on this song. You know, like the Epstein and Millie Bobby Brown's, Kendrick never brought up on his own in this battle. Like, those are two examples that Drake brought in on his own. Kendrick mentions Weinstein, not Epstein, and he never mentions Millie Bobby Brown. So it's almost like he's not even just talking to Kendrick here. It's almost like he's talking to everyone who has made these accusations against him or noticed the weirdness of Millie Bobby Brown saying Drake was texting her when she was 14, which comes up in this filing. That comes up later. We'll get there. But in the context of this battle, it's almost like self-snitching. I appreciate what Professor Sky broke down. 1 second applause for Professor Sky. C, Not Like Us is a massive commercial and artistic success. Lamar is widely perceived to have won the rap feud, see example T. Ultimately, I do think Kendrick did come out on the superior end of that quarrel. We can say Kendrick has won. Also see example W, New Yorker article asking, has there ever been as clear a loser as Drake? Jesus. Example X, New York Times article noting Lamar's unofficially winning a high-profile diss war with Drake. Not Like Us has also been a massive commercial and artistic success. It has been heard or viewed nearly 6 billion times and was the best-selling rap song of 2024. Here's a footnote before we move forward. This is about Baca. Baca refers to OVO member Baca Not Nice, who was arrested in 2014 on human trafficking and assault charges and convicted of assault in 2015. And then it's crazy. And here's Lamar's 2022 album was titled Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. Now, I think it's interesting that they put this footnotes here on Baca, because if his defamation is the argument is that the song is all lies. UMG knew this and should have never put it out. But at that part where he says certified pedophiles, he references Baca. He references Baca here. And Baca, it's not PDF charges, but it's definitely human trafficking. It's assault charges, so back to the motion. It set multiple records, including most single day streams for a rap song in the US, the fastest song to reach 300 million Spotify streams, and the most streamed song in a 7-day period, 96 million streams. Within the first week of its release, Not Like Us debuted at #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 list and ranked first on YouTube's weekly top music videos chart from July 4th to August 8th, 2024. It has maintained its popularity. On October 7th, 2024, Billboard reported that the recording had reached 45.4 million in total audience impressions on radio. It has also been used in over 1.3 million videos on TikTok. Rolling Stone deemed it the biggest moment in music this year. The song, recording, and video of Not Like Us were collectively nominated for 5 Grammy Awards as voted on by over 13,000 music industry peers, including Record of the Year, Song of the Year, Best Rap Performance, Best Rap Song, and Best Music Video, and won in all 5 categories. 1 second applause. Now, here's the argument. So this is where they break down their argument for why this Drake's defamation case should be dismissed with prejudice. 1. To survive a motion to dismiss under Rule 12b-6, a complaint must plead enough facts to state a claim to relief that is plausible on its face. See Bell Atlantic versus Twombly. The court can credit only well-pleaded non-conclusory factual allegations and must disregard legal conclusions. Ashcroft versus Iqbal. In certain circumstances, the court may permissibly consider documents other than the complaint in ruling on a motion under Rule 12b-6, Roth v. Jennings, such as documents incorporated into the complaint by reference in matters of which a court may take judicial notice. Bellin v. Zucker, cleaned up. Also Kramer v. Time Warner. The latter category includes the fact that press coverage contains certain information. So what they're doing is they're referencing other court cases, and then they're making a quick example as to why it's relevant to this case. So that's going to continue going forward, right? So you'll hear in this court case, and then in parentheses, you'll say, this is what that court case found. So it's actually pretty good for people reacting to this. A lot of times you read these documents here and they'll say reference this case, reference that case, but they don't necessarily say what it is about that case is relevant. This one does a really good job making it real easy without burying it in an appendix or whatever. Back to the motion. As well as other publicly available documents, see also Perazzo versus Bumblebee Foods. Courts will therefore often take judicial notice of documents that provided necessary context for a defamation claim. Bublinski versus Tarlov. Courts in this district have observed that there is a particular value in resolving defamation claims at the pleading stage so as to not protract litigation through discovery and trial and thereby chill the exercise of constitutionally protected freedoms. Definity found versus New York Times. That is, in defamation cases, Rule 12.6b not only protects against the cost of meritless litigation, but provides assurance to those exercising their First Amendment rights that doing so will not needlessly become prohibitively expensive. Bureau versus Condé Nast. 2. Drake fails to state a claim for defamation. Drake, who had no concerns using UMG's platform to publish slurs about Lamar during their rap feud, now claims that Not Like Us is defamatory. These allegations, which are directly aimed at chilling legitimate artistic expression safeguarded by the First Amendment and New York law, People ex rel Arcara versus Cloud Books, are meritless. Drake fails to state a claim for defamation because Not Like Us conveys non-actionable opinion and rhetorical hyperbole, not fact, and because Drake cannot adequately allege that UMG acted with actual malice. All right, so that is the core of what this argument is. I'm gonna read that one more time. Drake fails to state a claim for defamation because Not Like Us conveys non-actionable opinion and rhetorical hyperbole, not fact, and because Drake cannot adequately allege that UMG acted with actual malice. All right, so here's a footnote, right, that was around that. The footnote says, Drake contends that the lawsuit is not about the artist who created Not Like Us. Nonsense. As discussed herein, Though this lawsuit is baseless against any target, it is plainly about Lamar's lyrics. Drake's repeated insistence to the contrary does not make it so. Instead, it betrays his recognition that his true battle was and is with Lamar. Right. I mean, I'll read the statement from Drake's lawyer that follows this later on in here, but like, we all see this. We all see this. To succeed on his defamation claim, Drake must establish 1, a defamatory statement of and concerning the plaintiff, 2, publication to a third party, 3, fault, 4, falsity of the defamatory statement, and 5, special damages or per se actionability. Rapaport versus Barstool Sports. Now that's going to come up here too. That's Michael Rapaport versus Barstool Sports. And it's really interesting that they use that case because they cite that case multiple times here in this motion. And I'm going to show you why later on, but that's pretty funny. Whereas here, the plaintiff is a public figure, he must provide that the allegedly defamatory statement was made with actual malice, that is, made with knowledge of its falsity or with reckless disregard or whether it was false. Right now, I keep mentioning that they're describing this as vitriolic and, hyperbolic. They're going to explain in this too what they mean by that in a little bit more detail around this section. And they'll give some other examples of this. But that's a very hard thing to prove that UMG worked with actual malice. And they're gonna rebut what Drake is saying. He's saying that they did this to lower his value. And so they're gonna have an argument against that. A, the alleged defamatory material is non-actionable opinion and rhetorical hyperbole. To be defamatory, a publication must convey that, not opinion or rhetorical hyperbole. See Steinhelber versus Alphonse. Expressions of opinion as opposed to assertions of fact are deemed privileged and no matter how offensive cannot be the subject of an action for defamation. That's the First Amendment right there. First Amendment, expressions of opinion. Man versus Abel. Whether a statement is fact or opinion is a question of law for the court. Whether a statement is fact or opinion is a question of law for the court. Rapaport, and then also Definity found. Question of fact versus opinion is appropriately raised at the motion to dismiss stage. Now, this is what happened with these two cases. And they mentioned Rapaport again. We're going to get more details on that. To distinguish assertions of fact from non-actionable opinion, New York courts analyze, 1, whether the specific language in issue has a precise meaning which is readily understood. 2, whether the statements are capable of being proven true or false. And 3, whether either the full context of the communication in which the statement appears or the broader social context and surrounding circumstances are such as to signal readers or listeners that what is being read or heard is likely to be opinion, not fact. At its crux, the question for the court to resolve as a matter of law is what a reasonable person hearing or reading the statement would take it to mean. What a reasonable person would take it to mean. And a reasonable person understands rap battles, in my opinion. I would say a reasonable person understands that in rap battles, people say all kinds of crazy things. They've been happening since the 70s. In this assessment, context is key. The Court of Appeals of New York has consistently focused its analysis on the overall context in which the complained of assertions were made. Rapaport. So that's what was stated in Rapaport, which was dismissed. This includes both the immediate context in which the disputed words appear, as well as the larger context in which the statements were published, including the nature of the particular forum. Courts must look to the tone of the communication, its apparent purpose, and the setting in which it was made. Courts must look to the tone of the communication and its apparent purpose and the setting in which it was made. Right. So that was from Bryan, the court case Bryan, as well as Hayashi versus Azwa. So they have a number of court cases that have upheld these things. A statement's tone and apparent purpose may signal that it's not conveying an accurate factual assessment offered by a disinterested observer. Rapaport. For example, tone may indicate non-actionable opinion where it reflects a degree of anger and resentment. Sandals Resorts versus Google. Where the tenor is rambling, heated, or speculative, or often escalates into hyperbolic. Hayashi again. or where a statement invokes parody, loose or figurative language. Likewise, the broader context informs whether a statement is reasonably understood to convey factual assertions. 11 apparent statements of fact may assume the character of statements of opinion. When made in public debate, heated labor dispute, or circumstances in which an audience may anticipate the use of epithets, fiery rhetoric, or hyperbole. Steinhilber. Statements in a letter to the editor deemed non-actionable because the common expectation of a letter to the editor is not that it will serve as a vehicle for rigorous and comprehensive presentation of factual matter, but as one principally for the expression of individual opinion. Hobbes versus Imus. Right, so they reference a Don Imus case in here too, who was an old shock jock, probably most famous in our circles for nappy-headed hose. He's a nappy-headed hose guy. Right, he was sued for defamation at one point in time. And here's what they said in that case. Alleged defamatory statements by shock talk hosts did not state a claim for defamation as they would have been taken by reasonable listeners as factual pronouncements, but simply as the expression of views in the crude and hyperbolic manner that has over the years become their verbal stock in trade. Right. So shock jocks are generally immune from this because that is their stock in trade. They say crazy stuff. You can argue rap battles is the same way. You can argue that. Right. Now, here's a footnote here that we missed that I didn't get to. So this footnote here says, see also Immuno AG versus Moore Janowski. Alleged defamatory statements must be viewed in their context in order for courts to determine whether a reasonable person would view them as expressing or implying any facts. They also cite the Rapaport case again. They say, based on the context, a statement that is capable of being proven false may still be a non-actionable opinion. Right, so it's the same thing with shock jocks. Back to the motion. Consistent with that observation, New York courts routinely hold that tone and context render allegedly defamatory publications non-actionable. See Bryant. Allegations the plaintiff was involved in an illegal conspiracy non-actionable because they were published in op-ed pages where there is a common expectation that articles will contain considerable hyperbole, speculation, diversified forms of expression, and opinion. And because the predominant tone of the article, which was rife with humor, speculation, and seemingly tenuous inferences, furnished clues to the reasonable reader that the article was something less than serious. Objective reportage. We can tell. You can tell an opinion piece. Like, no one goes to an opinion piece expecting that it's going to be 100% fact. It might be based in fact. It might be based on whatever research someone's done, and they're expressing their opinion on top of it because their point of view based on what they have seen informs their opinion. But what they've seen or that opinion isn't necessarily from a reasonable person's standpoint presented in the same way as, say, a factual news story. I mean, it really is an interesting conversation about the evolution of media. 100 years ago, there wasn't this expectation that newspapers were printing facts all the time. You'd have all kinds of stuff in newspapers. It was over the course of the growth of the media industry where you have certain safeguards that were put in place so that the public could understand the difference between an opinion and a fact. There was certain internal safeguards that publications put on themselves so that they would separate themselves from different publications and enhance their own credibility. But there wasn't some expectation that you pick up a newspaper and it'd be whatever's true. And in a sense, maybe we're getting back to that, right? I mean, we're loosening all kinds of, ever since Reagan, he removed the statute that said the news had to report on both sides of a conversation. And that was to aid Roger Ailes and Rush Limbaugh in order to create a right-wing media silo that they dreamed of. They wanted to remove that statute saying that you had to report both sides of a conversation or a topic or an issue. So that's what led to one-sided arguments, one-sided news media, quote-unquote biased media. Media has evolved over time. It hasn't always been the same standard. And arguably now, with podcasts, with TikTok videos, there's really no stopping where we are, but it was an intentional shift. It's like the same thing because Reagan got rid of Reagan. In order to sell action figures, Reagan allowed for cartoonish violence, right? And so we got things like G.I. Joe and Thundercats and Ninja Turtles, for example. But one of the covenants at that point in time was that, okay, we can do realistic cartoonish violence, but we have to, have like a message for the kids at the end. Now you know, and knowing is half the battle. Right. So that was sort of the compromise that was made. They got rid of that now. You don't have to have, you don't even need that, so all this is a part of deregulation. But a reasonable person understands that what a shock jock is saying, arguably understands what a shock jock is saying isn't true. It's part of their verbal stock and trade. Back to the motion. 600 West 115th Corp versus Von Gutfeld said, statement alleging a permit application was as fraudulent as you can get and smells of bribery and corruption, not actionable as the statement was made at a heated public debate using colloquial and loose terms. Now, here's the Michael Rapaport part that I think is hilarious. The recent case of Michael Rapaport versus Barstool Sports is particularly instructive. Their actor Michael Rapaport alleged that statements by Barstool Sports accusing him, inter alia, of having herpes and abusing his ex-girlfriend included several statements in a 6-minute diss track in which defendants rapped a constant stream of insults and slurs about Rapaport against a backdrop of unflattering video clips and images were defamatory. This happened. This was a real thing. I didn't realize this. I mean, I remember seeing Twitter stories about this Michael Rapaport versus Barstool Sports. Michael Rapaport, man.
Tomato.
It's really terrible, the descent that man has made. But I didn't realize they had a diss track that he sued him for. And I know you're curious, right? What does said diss track sound like? Well, this is what it sounds like. Like to hear it? Here it go.
Fuck Michael Rapaport, should've left alone. Time to remind ya, I own the Iron Throne. Marshmallow Man, lawyered up bitch. Hope the girls he gave the herp to don't snitch. No what?
1 second applause. But it's terrible. It's objectively awful, but this is what happened between Michael Rapaport and Barstool Sports. And it's a diss track that ended up in the legal system, not by any rappers necessarily. It seems more like a spoof thing than anything else. But they reference this case quite a bit because in this song here, all of these things were deemed to not, all the examples from this track, from a reasonable person's perspective, it was deemed that this was clear hyperbole. So this is why they're mentioning Rapaport this whole time, because of what Barstool said about him.
Should've left alone. Time to remind ya, I own the Iron Throne. Marshmallow Man, lawyered up bitch. Hope the girls he gave the herp to don't snitch. Nope.
Look at that image. That's crazy. But yeah, this is part of the case. This is part of the case. I'll read that again. The recent case of Rapaport versus Barstool Sports is particularly instructive. Their actor, Michael Rapaport, alleged that statements by Barstool Sports accusing him, inter alia, of having herpes and abusing his ex-girlfriend, including several statements in a 6-minute diss track in which defendants rapped a constant stream of insults and slurs about Rapaport against a backdrop of unflattering video clips and images were defamatory. The district court rejected the claim as a matter of law. The statements were largely laden with epithets, vulgarities, hyperbole, and non-literal language and imagery, delivered in the midst of a public and very acrimonious dispute between Barstool defendants and Rapaport that would have been obvious to even the most casual observer and published on social media, blogs, and sports talk radio, which are all platforms where audiences reasonably anticipate hearing opinionated statements. That's why they've been mentioning this so often leading up to this portion in this motion to dismiss, because it's very similar in terms of a person's reasonable expectation when going into diss tracks. I don't go into diss tracks expecting to hear all truths. This is a rap battle. You're going to hear all kinds of hyperbole. You're going to hear a hyperbole in rap in general. The Second Circuit affirmed Rapaport, holding that the district court appropriately considered that the statements at issue were made in the context of a hostile, vulgar, and hyperbolic feud, in which the use of epithets, vulgarities, and hyperbole function as a strong indicator to the reasonable reader that the statement is not expressing or implying any facts. These conclusions apply equally here. Considered in context as is required, Not Like Us conveys hyperbole and opinion, not facts. 1 second applause. And if it does say facts, then I don't know what all these Drake fans have been arguing about. If they're saying, if this case of defamation is saying, if they think that these things are facts, and that puts a whole nother spin on Drizzy that I'm not ready to spin to yet. But no, they're opinions. It's a rap battle. And that was well said. I like this reference a lot. So 1 second applause to that reference again. Looking first to its tone, the 4.5 minute rap diss tracks consists of a series of epithets, fiery rhetoric, and hyperbole. Steinhelmer said, endemic to the rap genre. Not surprisingly, given the context, the recording reflects a considerable degree of anger and resentment. Sandals and exaggerated vitriolic words pervade the recording to attack all aspects of Drake's life, including his career, authenticity, brand, relationships, and character. Exaggerated imagery in the music video reinforces that Not Like Us is not intended to reflect factual analysis. For example, the video opens with Lamar whispering to a clown that he sees dead people, a nod to the film The Sixth Sense, implying hyperbolically that Drake has been defeated in the rap battle. The video also shows Lamar beating an owl piñata with the disclaimer, no OV hoes were harmed during the making of this video, and staring down an owl cage. This imagery reinforces the non-factual nature of Not Like Us. Indeed, no reasonable listener would require a disclaimer that the piñata is not literally Drake and his crew. The imagery is satirical and vitriolic, all of which signals to the audience that the video does not convey sober, factual analysis. I agree. 1 second applause. Here's a footnote here. As to the diss track video specifically, the court had no difficulty finding that the video offered in the midst of the hostile public feud and containing exaggerated vitriolic words and imagery, attacking Rapaport's career, popularity, relationships, appearance, age, and legal troubles, conveyed to the viewers that the statements in were non-actionable opinion. Now they're talking about the Michael Rapaport video. But again, Not Like Us, the music video was in Drake's defamation case. So they're rebutting everything that was in the defamation case. This is their argument against it, rather. Likewise, the album image of Drake's Toronto house is obviously doctored, further underscoring the non-factual nature of Not Like Us. Again, no reasonable viewer would believe that the image of Drake's Toronto mansion with 13 S-offender markers is real. The image is hyperbolic and exaggerated, conveying opinion, not fact. And then they reference Hustler magazine versus Falwell, rejecting claim arising out of magazine's outrageous artwork depicting television minister in a manner that was patently offensive and intended to inflict emotional injury, where the speech could not have reasonably been interpreted as stating actual facts about the public figure involved, right? So that was a very famous case too, the Hustler magazine case. There was a movie with Woody Harrelson, I think Woody Harrelson was in that movie. Shout out to Woody Harrelson. 1 second applause. Woody Harrelson, he has a strong argument to me to be the greatest actor of all time. He could play presidents, he could play psychopaths, he could play Marvel villains, he could play basketball. Basketball, that's the hardest one. The hardest one is, can you play athlete? Can you play athlete like Omar Epps? He's great at playing a track star. He did that in higher learning. He's great at playing a football player. He did that in a program. He played a basketball player in Love and Basketball and was terrible. He was not believable. He was supposed to be an NBA prospect. Sanaa Lathan washed him. Sanaa Lathan washed him. Washed him. 1 second applause for Sanaa Lathan. But Woody Harrelson, to me, strong argument to be the greatest actor of all time. It's him and Denzel in my mind. And they both can play basketball. The broader context also reinforces that Not Like Us is non-actionable. Not Like Us did not emerge out of thin air. It was Lamar's culminating diss track and one of the nastiest lyrical warfare rap feuds in recent history. It It followed the release of 7 preceding tracks in which Drake and Lamar hurled increasingly vitriolic allegations at each other, including Drake's slurs that Lamar's son was fathered by someone else and that Lamar cheats on and physically abuses his fiancée. If ever there was circumstance for the audience to anticipate the use of epithets, fiery rhetoric, or hyperbole, this is it. This is it. 1 second applause. I mean, they're making very sound arguments that people have talked about for a long time because it's true. It's true. I've heard people say this is a crowdsourced defense. Not all of it. I mean, clearly there's a lot more nuance and details provided than I think I've heard any commentator say. I haven't heard anybody compare this to Rapaport and Barstool Sports. But a reasonable person understands what's happening in a rap battle. Understands what's happening in a rap battle. And after Family Matters, after all that junk Drake was talking, all those things he said, yeah, A minor. Sounds about right. Sounds about right. 1 second pause. Back to the motion. Moreover, assessment of the broader context makes clear that Not Like Us relates to well-known controversies that Drake himself acknowledged and perpetuated. See Jizzle versus Clear Channel. Statements not actionable considering the overall context in which the statements were made. A reasonable listener would not have believed that the alleged statements were conveying facts about the plaintiff rather than opinion, because the statements were based on facts that were widely reported by Western New York media outlets and were known to the listeners. Galazzo versus Saltzman. Statements that plaintiff was criminal and engaged in criminal conduct not actionable where listeners were familiar with the issues in dispute and with the respective sides' positions. Facts and criticism concerning Drake's relationship with minors predate Not Like Us. Predate Not Like Us and have been widely reported. See example T. Noting that Lamar is indicting Drake for years of rumors and speculations around his misbehavior around minors, and that Millie Bobby Brown is one of the things that most people are aware of when it comes to Drake and the rumors around him. She talked about texting with Drake when she was, a minor. That's in here. That's in here. This would be so ugly if it made it to trial. I've heard people around Drake are not excited about this. Not excited about this at all. Right. And I can imagine, Universal wouldn't want to go to trial. It would be very ugly. But this made it in here. Here's the footnote. Example NP, news articles covering video of an adult Drake kissing and fondling a 17-year-old at a concert. Examples Q&R, news articles covering criticism of an adult Drake's friendship with Millie Bobby Brown when the latter was 14.
Tomato.
Notably, Drake himself called on Lamar to invoke these allegations in tailor-made freestyle, in which he had Tupac's AI-generated voice rap that Lamar should talk about Drake liking young girls. In The Heart Part 6, Drake also affirmed that he understood Lamar's statements in Not Like Us to refer to the Millie Bobby Brown controversy, stating, "This Epstein angle was the ish I expected, and only effing with Whitney's, not Millie Bobby Brown's. I never looked twice at no teenager." Clearly, Drake himself understands that Lamar's lyrics refer solely to well-known issues. Well-known issues. Taken together with the fact that Not Like Us was released in the context of a combative and vitriolic rap diss battle, it would be obvious to even the most casual observer that Not Like Us is not an accurate factual assessment offered by a disinterested observer. In sum, the tone and broader context in which Not Like Us was released makes plain that the recording, video, and album cover convey rhetorical hyperbole and opinion not based on anything beyond controversies that have been widely acknowledged, including by Drake himself. Drake fails to state an actionable claim for defamation. Here's a footnote that I missed. It has also been widely reported that OVO member Baka Not Nice was arrested in 2014 on human trafficking and assault charges and convicted for assault in 2015. B, Drake cannot allege that UMG acted with actual malice. Okay. Drake's defamation claim fails for the independent reason that as a matter of law, he cannot allege that UMG acted with actual malice. A public figure can only prevail on a defamation claim where clear and convincing evidence proves that a false and defamatory statement was published with actual malice, that is, with deliberate or reckless falsification. The element of actual malice is a defamation claim focuses primarily on what a defendant knew or believed at the time a purportedly false statement was made. To survive a motion To dismiss, a defamation plaintiff must allege specific facts that plausibly evidence actual malice in a clear and convincing manner. Here's the footnote. Drake alleges that statements in Lamar's Euphoria, including "Don't tell no lie about me and I won't tell no truth about you" and "I know some shit," imply that any future allegations levied by Lamar against Drake will be based in truth and undisclosed fact, not rumor or opinion. These statements are plainly too vague to ascribe such content. And Drake omits the full statement, which is that I know some shit about hitters that make Gunna want to look like a saint. Example H. That has nothing to do with this case, but rather refers to rap artist Gunna, who was criticized for allegedly snitching in a criminal case. Example V, GQ article. Drake likewise understood this jab the same way rapping on Family Matters can't be rapping about no ratting that we can't read. Example J. Moreover, Drake again ignores the broader context that both parties traded these sorts of jabs. For example, Drake in Family Matters claimed with respect to his own unfounded allegations that your darkest secrets are coming to light. He makes similar assertions in the Heart Part 6 rapping. What about the bones we dug up in the excavation? And why isn't Whitney denying all these allegations? Rebuttal. Courts recognize that in certain circumstances, such works of fiction, parody, and satire, the actual malice inquiry must focus on what the publisher subjectively intended to convey. For example, where the speaker intends his statements as outrageous parodies or caricatures, there may be no consciousness that the speaker is publishing something else because the speaker does not think he is publishing a statement of fact and therefore lacks subjective knowledge or recklessness as to the falsification of a statement of fact required to show actual malice. See Hope versus Herp, where it said affirming dismissal of defamation claim where no basis for contention that defendant intended satirical article to convey defamatory facts. See Miss America pageant versus Penthouse, where it said it would seem too simplistic in the case of a fictional or satirical work simply to question whether the author, publisher, and the subjective intent to publish is a falsity, since such works are not included to convey truth. See Balea versus World Championship Wrestling, where alleged defamatory statements by participant in World Championship Wrestling match not actionable as they do not contain the necessary consciousness or falsity because the speaker did not think he was publishing a statement of fact. So too here. There is no basis for a claim that any person at UMG had subjective intent to publish false factual statements about Drake. UMG released a rap diss track conveying fiery rhetoric and insults, not factual assessments, much less false ones. UMG, this part right here stood out to me too. UMG engaged in the same conduct when it distributed Drake's Family Matters, in which Drake rapped that Lamar engages in domestic abuse and is not the father of his son. Much like parody and satire, hyperbole, exaggeration, and insults are endemic in rap, particularly in diss tracks, rappers know that their lyrics are exaggerated and non-factual. That is part of the craft. The actual malice question is therefore what UMG intended to convey. And Drake has not alleged any specific facts plausibly evidencing in a clear and convincing manner that anyone at UMG intended to convey or indeed believed that the public would understand, not like us, as conveying anything other than what it was, an incendiary diss track. 1 second, applause. All right, so this is the harassment allegations and then the botting allegations. So Drake fails to state a claim for harassment in the second degree. Drake further asserts a criminal claim for harassment in the second degree. See New York Penal Law, Section 240-263. On the theory that Kendrick Lamar issued a call to violence against Drake and Not Like Us with threats of violence, and that the song thus amounts to incitement. This claim fails for multiple reasons. First, there is no private right of action. Where a penal statute does not expressly confer a private right of action on individuals pursuing civil relief, recovery under such a statute may be had only if a private right of action may fairly be implied. Hammer versus AKC. This requires considering whether creation of such a right would be consistent with the legislative scheme, which is not the case when there are alternative enforcement mechanisms. Ortiz versus Seahawks Health. Section 242.6 does not satisfy this test because nothing distinguishes it from every other run-of-the-mill criminal statute that lacks a private right of action. Rarely is there a private right of action under a criminal statute as a general rule, when a statute is considered solely within the penal law section of New York. Legislature intended it as a police regulation to be enforced only by a court of criminal jurisdiction. Here's the footnote. Drake has made obviously non-factual claims about himself in his own music, including that he has connections to organized crime and has been involved in mob hits. See example Z. I F with the mob and I got ties, lot of ties, knock you off to pay their tithes. Doo-doo. 1 second applause. This is a trip. Hey, Drake got mob ties. Are we saying that's true now? I don't know. We don't know. As with other criminal statutes, the fact that second-degree harassment is included in the penal law, giving police officers the ability to enforce its provisions, means that a private right of action is inconsistent with the legislative scheme. Courts, therefore, routinely hold Section 2426 does not create a private right of action. Cablevision versus Communicus Workers of America Distribution, which ended references a few court cases. Even if the statute did have the private right of action, the harassment claim would fail. The statute requires that UMG act with the intent to harass, annoy, or alarm Drake. New York Penal Law, Section 242.6. But at most, Drake merely asserts an intent to devalue Drake's music and brand in order to gain leverage in negotiations, which is not an intent to harass Drake. Now, this part is interesting. I think this part right here is really up to interpretation. And here's why I say that, right? It depends on how the judge, all of this is up to interpretation, but it'll be interesting to see how the judge reacts to it. What UMG is arguing is that the harassment claim would fail because the statute requires that UMG act with intent to harass, annoy, or alarm Drake. But at most, Drake merely asserts an intent to devalue Drake's music and brand in order to gain leverage in negotiations, which is not an intent to harass Drake. Now, I might feel harassed if someone's trying to devalue me, but if the argument is that they didn't explicitly state that, it'll be very interesting to see what the court determines when it comes to this point. There's more. And regardless, this allegation is speculative, conclusory, and illogical. Drake does not even attempt to explain how a contract with Drake would be more profitable for UMG if Drake was devalued. After all, any decreased leverage would presumably come from decreased revenues and thus decreased profits. Moreover, Drake's allegations are contradicted by his allegations that UMG had the opposite incentive with respect to re-signing Lamar. That's how it looks to me. If you're going to devalue someone and still want to sign them, you have to make an argument for why that makes sense. But on face value, you'd want both of them to be as valuable as possible. 24026 does not prescribe pure speech, which is what is at issue here. Indeed, if Section 24026 did prescribe speech, then it would be struck down. The New York Court of Appeals has invalidated multiple laws that purport to criminalize harassing speech. Facially invalidating harassment statute that criminalize any communication that has the intent to annoy. And then People versus Dietz, facially invalidating harassment statute that prescribed any abusive language intended to annoy. Next, even if Drake could surmount these obstacles, his claim would still fail because he cannot meet the constitutional test for incitement in any event. Under the First Amendment, incitement can be prescribed only where speech is directed to inciting or producing imminent lawlessness and is likely to incite or produce such action. Brandenburg versus Ohio. These are two requirements the speech must be both intended to produce and likely to produce imminent disorder. Neither is satisfied. First, even accepting Drake's nonsensical theory that UMG wanted to devalue his brand, Drake never alleges that UMG intended to cause violence against him, and any such allegation would be utterly implausible. Second, the lyrics of Not Like Us are not likely to incite or produce imminent lawlessness, or even qualify as speech which alarms or seriously annoys. It is a rap diss track. Drake attempts to contort violent metaphors in the lyrics into incitement, like the sound of someone being beaten up. The recording repeats wop, 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 and then Lamar says, "We'll F him up," right? So they do contort that. This last part was referencing Drake's defamation filing in this lawsuit here. And Drake's lawyers actually respond primarily to this part, right? So we'll get there after we get through this. But primarily in this part, this is what Drake's lawyers respond to. But as explained above, hyperbolic and metaphorical language is par for the course in diss tracks. Indeed, Drake's own diss tracks employed imagery at least as violent, such as gunshot sounds, and lyrics like, you're dead, there's nowhere to hide, I'll slit your throat with a razor, yeah, bullets that I'm stuffing in each chamber, your ass is in extreme danger. I mean, his bars read so basic. They read so basic next to... Oh my God. Next to the bars that they have in here from Dot's standpoint, but like, you know, this is what it is. In short, as with his defamation claim, Drake seeks to chill a form of artistic expression that he himself has embraced. Courts have rejected far stronger claims of imminent lawlessness than rap diss tracks. See NAACP versus Claiborne Hardware. Statement that if we catch any of you going in any of them racist stores, we're going to break your damn neck, was protected speech, even though subsequently shots were fired into the home of boycott violators. Now, that's an interesting reference because one of the things that Drake's lawsuit contends is that it adds causation to the gunshots that happened at his house, the intruders that Drake had at his house, to this song. Now, I think that's up for debate, but this case particularly has those elements as well. You didn't have the same elements with the Michael Rapaport case, for example, we talked about earlier. And so this is an interesting reference. You know, we'll see how the court views this. Finally, Drake fails to allege, because he cannot, that UMG acted with no legitimate purpose in publishing and promoting Not Like Us. New York Penal Law, Section 240.26, 240.26. The phrase "no legitimate purpose" means the absence of a reason or justification to engage someone other than to hound, frighten, intimidate, or threaten. People versus Stewart. Here, Drake expressly alleges that UMG's motives with respect to Not Like Us were financial. Seemingly recognizing this deficiency, Drake alleges that while its initial motive was financial, UMG lost any legitimate purpose to continue its course of conduct in the face of Drake's public and private denials. The Hard Part 6, for example, where he denies whatever Kendrick's saying and Not Like Us. This, in Drake's filing, they're saying that UMG should stop promoting the song at that point. But this is a cursory legal conclusion. Drake's denials about the song have nothing to do with whether UMG's motivations were solely to hound, frighten, intimidate, or threaten, which by Drake's own admission, they were not. Yeah, we'll see how that goes. Drake fails to state a claim under New York General Business Law, Section 349. Now, this is about the payola allegations, right? So finally, Drake purports to bring a claim to New York General Business Law, Section 349, which he asserts UMG violated by covertly financially incentivizing third parties to play, stream, and promote the recording, and then by making materially false and misleading representation of the recording's popularity to consumers. These allegations are entirely bogus, but in all events fail to state a claim. To state a Section 349 claim, a plaintiff must allege that the defendant's conduct was consumer-oriented, the defendant's act or practice was deceptive or misleading in a material way, and the plaintiff suffered an injury as a result of the deception. The centerpiece of this claim was the utterly false assertion that UMG used bots to stream, Not Like Us. Drake based this theory on the claim that an anonymous individual on a Twitch stream that Kendrick Lamar's label, i.e. Interscope, paid him via third parties to use bots to achieve 30 million streams on Spotify in the initial days following the Not Like Us release. But this claim is then directly refuted by the very source that Drake cites in the Twitch stream. The anonymous speaker, already a dubious source, claims that he was hired by Anthony Soleil, who was Kendrick Lamar's manager. UMG Interscope are never accused. Critically, after UMG notified Drake's counsel of the falsity of Drake's allegations via Rule 11 and accompanying Rule 11 motion, Drake conceded the falsity and agreed to withdraw and correct the meritless allegation. See declaration of Roland A. Ransom. Example 1. Despite this conclusion, Drake has refused to actually amend the complaint to withdraw the admittedly false allegation until after UMG files this motion to dismiss. So they're saying that Drake agreed to withdraw. He agreed that it was false, but refused to withdraw and correct until this motion to dismiss was filed. And we covered that last week in the video, or 2 weeks ago. But here's the footnote, right? One, they referenced that this was DJ Academic's stream in the footnote. But two, it says here, to be clear, this is important. To be clear, UMG disputes the contention that anyone paid for or otherwise used bots to inflate streams of Not Like Us, as there is no evidence of any such stream manipulation, and the record evidence filed in a separate legal proceeding that Drake initiated against UMG, but then abandoned earlier this year, is to the contrary. Section Y, affirmation from Spotify, right? So that was when Spotify was removed from the case. But the specific claim that someone affiliated with UMG did so is entirely unsupported by the very source Drake cites, which is what that guy was saying on Academics' stream. He was saying he was paid by Kendrick's manager, not UMG. What is left of the Section 3049 claim after subtracting the bogus stream manipulation theory is equally spurious. As an initial matter, all of the remaining allegations are made on information and belief without stating the basis, therefore. Drake has also received information that UMG engaged in a classic pay-for-play scheme by paying to increase the airplay of the recording on the radio. On information and belief, UMG employed a similar scheme by paying social media influencers to promote and endorse the recording and video. That's from Drake's filing. This is, of course, improper pleading and warrants dismissal based on Stacky versus Wide World of Cars. Information and belief allegations require allegations of fact in support. Bohem versus Sportsman says information and belief allegations must be accompanied by a statement of the facts upon which the belief is founded and cannot rest on pure conjecture. Moreover, Section 349 requires a plaintiff to allege that he suffered an injury as a result of the deception. Yet now that artificially streaming is out, Drake does not assert that any of UMG's other supposedly deceptive conduct injured him, save for putative misstatements concerning the popularity of Not Like Us on the radio. Plaintiff was separately injured as a direct and proximate result of defendant's deceptive acts and practices in the radio industry, because every time recording was played, Drake lost the opportunity for one of his songs to be played. I think that's really the problem. I think that's what he doesn't like. This is part of what people have been saying online, right? Oh, Drake is just upset that UMG backed someone else, or UMG didn't stop someone else. Oh, every time Kendrick song's played, that means you can't play a Drake song. Them songs ain't go. Them songs did not go. Those songs were not cultural phenomena. 1 second, pause. But these allegations are insufficient. First, there's no consumer-oriented conduct. The deceptive act that Drake alleges is that UMG marketed the recording as chart-topping despite knowing that it had paid third parties, including radio stations, to play and promote the recording. That was in Drake's filing. But this complaint alleges only that UMG marketed Not Like Us as a chart topping on its website for licensing on television and in film. Statements aimed at the television and film industry concerning licensing rather than consumers are not consumer-oriented conduct. No consumer-oriented conduct when deception was directed solely at persons interested in obtaining licenses for the operation of taxi cabs, not taxi consumers, and did not concern products or services purchased as consumer goods, right? So if you're marketing Not Like Us for sync licensing to be in movies or television shows, you're not marketing that to general consumer. So there's no deception to the consumer. It's not consumer-based good. It's going to other avenues, other tentacles within the industry. It's not going to the general public. Second, Drake does not allege that this statement was deceptive or misleading in a material way. Drake never alleges, nor could he, that Not Like Us would not have been chart-topping had it not been for the alleged payments or issue, nor does he include any allegations as to why the chart-topping claim would be material in any event. Third, Drake's allegations of injury and causations are lacking. Drake's theory that every time the recording was played, Drake lost the opportunity for one of his songs to be played is wildly speculative and not cognizable. Nor does Drake allege that any lost radio opportunities were the result of any supposed UMG misstatements about the song's popularity, which means that he does not allege an injury that is the result of the deception at issue. For all these reasons, Drake's Section 349 claim fails. I mean, maybe, and I think we're probably seeing that now. You know, there is a lot of expectation, that Nokia is going to rise on the charts this week. Now, that's off his most recent project with Party Next Door, and it's going to be in the mid top 10. You know, it's going to be in the top 10, right? It could be number 5, 6, 7, somewhere in there, right? It may be higher. We don't know yet, right? And radio is a huge part of that. So here's an example of a song that Drake has that's rising on the charts. He just had a number 1 album that just came out. So now this is a direct rebuttal to what he's arguing in his own lawsuit. So that's it. Conclusion: for all the foregoing reasons, plaintiff's complaint should be dismissed with prejudice. So 1 second to pause. We made it through. But that's what UMG filed today. UMG filed this today. This was his motion to dismiss. And Drake's lawyer has a response. But here's what Mike Gottlieb tells TMZ. UMG wants to pretend that this is about a rap battle in order to distract its shareholders, artists, and the public from a simple truth. A greedy company is finally being held responsible for profiting from dangerous misinformation that has already resulted in multiple acts of violence. So this is what I mentioned in the when we were going through the filing. In his filing, Drake is saying Not Like Us is the reason his security guard was shot. That's what it's saying. It's adding causation to that. Now, we've covered on here. I mean, it's a coincidence, I'm sure, or maybe there's something more there. But the same thing happened to the Weeknd's manager's bodyguard the week before. You know, the point is that situation could have come from anywhere. It could have come from anywhere, but they're still leaning heavily into this. Here's the rest of the quote. This motion is a desperate ploy by UMG to avoid accountability, but we have every confidence that this case will proceed and continue to uncover UMG's long history of endangering, abusing, and taking advantage of its artists. I mean, that's what the lawyer said. You know, there's a lot of talk again about this being crowdsourced defense. I think it makes a lot of good points. But the parts of this, to me, that stick out the most here are, one, they peg him as a hypocrite, heavy hypocrite. They actually explain hip hop history to him. You know, two, they break down certain statutes, you know, as to why certain allegations made in Drake's defamation case, for example, the botting stuff, doesn't even apply. There's a part in there where they're talking about, again, how Drake refused to amend the fact that he already agreed that there was nothing, there was no foul play when it came to the streams and radio, which we covered last week in a video. But he wouldn't amend until the motion to dismiss was filed. Now, maybe that's a legal strategy. For those of you who might have missed that video, here's what was said last week with the petition with iHeart, right? Because this was a petition in Texas to iHeart, and Drake withdrew the petition. And so here's what it said. The petition initially named UMG and radio giant iHeartMedia as respondents, but Drake and iHeart reached an amicable resolution of the dispute at the end of February, leaving UMG as the sole respondent. iHeart issued a statement saying that in exchange for documents that showed iHeart did nothing wrong, Drake agreed to drop his petition. No payments were made by either one of us. And then, according to a report by the Associated Press, a representative for Drake disputed iHeart's claim, saying the radio company has not provided a single document as of yet to Drake, let alone any information that showed they did nothing wrong. Well, if that's the case, they dropped the petition regardless, right? But this is what happened. So those allegations are still in this document. I think they do a good job of rebutting that as well. And again, Drake's initial filing was presented in a vacuum. It was presented as if Not Like Us was just a song on its own. No, it was the eighth song in a rap battle. And that is important context for a reasonable person to understand whether someone is being defamed or not. I think this is strong, in my opinion. I'm not a legal expert. If there's one in the audience, let me know what you guys think about this. I also, obviously, this all comes up to how the court is going to look at what's been presented. And so now we're still waiting to see if this will be dismissed or if it's going to go to court. I think early April or something like that would be the first hearing. It's not all the way over yet. But we heard last week again that Drake said this next phase is going to be uneasy. And I mentioned that last week when I covered that. Drake now has a pattern of posting things that are cryptic or we don't necessarily understand. And over the next week or so, in the near future, after those posts or that song or whatever goes up, there is some legal, some update around his defamation case against UMG. And I, looking at this, looking at Drake's following this whole time, I don't see an altruistic, damn near billionaire rapper trying to help other people maneuver through a predatory music industry. I see a self-serving superstar who is having a very difficult time, an embarrassingly public struggle, taking another loss, taking a loss this massive. And I think that there is something to that. Again, he's the only person on the planet that who knows directly what it's like to have a song as big as Not Like Us use hyperbolic language to that effectiveness that has become a cultural phenomenon. No one else has had that experience. Nowhere close. And so I don't want to, discount what he's experiencing. But this action, putting the diss track genre, as it says in this filing, on trial, essentially. And in the name of helping artists in a predatory music industry, is all cap. I see someone that's willing to burn the whole thing down if he's not on top. And that's something I have zero respect for. Let me know what you guys think about all this. Let me know if there's anything I got wrong, if there's anything in here that adds more context. And let me know what you think, how this is going to break. Do you think this is going to get dismissed, or is this going to go to trial? My name is Justin Hunt. Like and subscribe to the channel. Follow the Company Man on everything. It's all happening.
Justin Hunt is here, it's all happening. Justin Hunt is here, it's all happening. The mathematical breakdown of this mighty game of rap we in. It's boom bapping. Systematical culture views us radical, it's all happening. Shaking hands and dapping it. Life through the lens of hip hop, from trip hop to yes, dog. You don't stop, you don't stop. Justin Hunt is here, it's all happening. It's all happening, yes, it's all happening. Justin Hunt is here, it's all happening. It's all happening, yes, it's all happening.